gentlemen, welcome back to the MaxBet podcast, a podcast dedicated to gaming.
We're your hosts. I'm here with Landon Michael Jones, and I'm Mike McKiskey. Let's get started.
Let's roll.
We're doing it, man. Here at the Light and Wonder Studios, as always. We are just cranking.
We are cranking, and we are excited for this week's episode.
We got the boss.
We have the boss.
Yeah.
And I missed this week's episode.
But no Landon. Yeah,
no
exactly.
Lando. I was in Hawaii for a 7-day vacation.
Yeah.
Got to detach a little bit and chill on the beach. So that was a lot of fun.
That's good. Well, my favorite part about you going to Hawaii was that I would get these random pictures or videos. At times that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So like it would be late and you're showing me like a daylight video and I'm like, what's going on? Oh, time zone. You're like 3 hours behind or whatever. And so it'd be nighttime.
It is a nice time difference though, because you get 2 hours back. So you'll wake up in Hawaii at like 5 in the morning, charged, ready to go.
Oh, because it's like 8 a.m. in your body.
2 hours back from Pacific Standard Time. So
did you do anything at 5 a.m.? Were you out there just running the sands or something like that?
Honestly, it was nonstop, man.
Yeah.
We did like 4 hikes. Saw amazing waterfalls. We did the whole island, so we went around the whole entire island.
Island of Maui?
Yeah, island of Maui.
Interesting.
Did the Rodahana in like this little Honda rental car. We pretty much destroyed that, so that was cool.
Sorry, Hertz, if you're listening. Did you? Yeah, it was wild because you sent me one video, and so it's fun, like not having been there in a while. I mean, it's pre-pandemic. It's my last trip to Hawaii, and so you look at it and you go, well, all I see on the news is it's crowded. There's people everywhere. You think of it supposed to be like shoulder to shoulder, and then you send me what might be the coolest looking waterfall I've ever seen. I go, how is it just you guys? Like, there's a bridge with no one on it, and I'm like, and it's middle of the day, so it didn't think. And you go, well, we hiked 4 hours.
Yeah, we got super lucky. So it was raining for a lot of the time that we were there, but we were like, we're not going to let the rain stop us. So we did this amazing hike. It was called like the 13 crossings. You have to cross this river 13 times to get to this waterfall. And we got to the parking lot and no one was there. And we're like, that's interesting. It's like something we shouldn't know.
Is it closed? Yeah, exactly.
And so we did the hike in this like pretty massive rainstorm, this tropical storm. And we got to the top and no one was there. And right when we got to the top, it was just this
sun came
out. And so we had this waterfall all to ourselves, sunny. It was beautiful. And then we got back. And her brother who lives on the mountain, he's like, you did the 13 crossings in a tropical storm? You know how dangerous that is? You guys are idiots. There's flash flooding. That's why nobody was on the hike.
Hey, it worked out.
Worked out.
So it's funny. When I was in Maui, I don't know, for my sister's wedding, so this is a while ago, we did a bike ride down the volcano.
Yeah.
So pure lazy guy bike ride. So they drive you on the bus at 4 a.m. You take it all the way up. You watch the sunrise. I don't remember the name of the mountain. You watch a sunrise, and then you get on the bike and basically ride all the way down.
That's pretty epic.
It was hurricane warning. So as we're riding down, it's just the worst rain, but we're stubborn family. So we're like, we're doing it. We paid for it. We're doing it.
I bet it was worth it, though. It
was
adds
cool.
a new
The
element,
story was
right?
pretty cool. I wrecked it on the bike, which I thought was pretty funny because I feel like anytime you have a gigantic human just eating it, it's just funnier, right?
Oh,
like even
it's great.
like in The Hangover, it's just funny.
I missed that. I'm sad I missed it.
That was actually might have been before I knew you. Otherwise, I'd probably have a video that I would have been circulating. Look at me, I'm an idiot. But yeah, man, all good.
Good to be back, though. It's.
What are you looking forward to now that you're back?
I just got to get out of vacation mode.
Yeah.
You know how that works. That's why I did the trip and got back on a Friday.
That's right.
And I still have like the weekend to kind of get back into it.
Get your mind right and hit the ground.
Get their 725 emails. So
that's it.
Pumped on that.
Yeah.
But welcome back to the pod.
Yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, we're doing it, and wanted to shout out some folks that were standing by us. So as you guys heard on our first, if you haven't listened to it already, just Landon and I kind of updated everyone on this wild ride, 6-month break to the pod. But we had sponsors prior to, right? Yep. And so then it was kind of like, hey guys, sorry, we're hitting the pause button. And so one of them, Kieran from Gaming Analytics, we've talked about, super patient, just say, hey, we're here when you're here. So he's back with us. I mean, he was with us originally. We paused him. He's kind of back. And so just want to shout out what he's doing at Gaming Analytics and kind of the confidence he's had in us. And he's been winning. So it's like we took a break. He didn't take any breaks. He just announced a bunch of new deals. So he's doing AI kind of gaming. It's called Gaming Analytics. It's an analytics engine for your marketing, casino, all your different systems that kind of aggregate into one thing, gives you insights. And
the Google search of AI for gaming.
The casino Google. Yes,
I always
exactly.
call it that. But to go back to that, like, they've been a huge supporter of the show. And the show is really for you guys. I mean, it's not like we're just crushing it and making a ton of money. Right. So like having people like Gaming Analytics and Kieran support us has allowed us to continue on this journey.
For sure.
So all of you that have continue to support us, a big shout out and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So.
Yeah, that was also humbling. Like, because we just came back again with our first episode in a while. I don't know now, a couple weeks ago, and it was just you and I. So like, it was also like, hey, we're just gonna talk, no guests, and that had massive download numbers. Like, it's like, whoa, super humbling. So yeah, thank you guys for sticking with us on the listens. Thank you to folks like Kieran for sticking with us on kind of the patience and the sponsorship side. Obviously, L&W for building up this whole studio, right? So anyway, just kind of a little gratitude moment for us here. But yeah, I'm pumped. And then I think you teased it earlier, but we got the boss in today. There's a fun interview. I know you weren't part of it.
I'm sad that I wasn't.
You were missed because you definitely provide a different level of energy. Like
I'm the question mark.
Yeah, in more ways than one. It's you're the wild card, and so. But it was pretty cool to have her just kind of be really transparent about just leadership tactics and struggles to some degree, and things she's still working on. Right?
Yeah.
I think her and I talked about this idea that you don't ever really have it figured out. Right? Like the day you have it figured out, you're probably now retired and living in Maui, watching these guys do their 13 crossings in like the rainstorm. Right? So. Really cool chat with
it's
her.
like it's an always evolving business, and so you have to stay ahead of the curve, right? So as soon as you think you have it figured out, someone's already on a new path to figuring something else out.
Well, like
right?
what was it? Charlie Lombardo in his interview goes, "Well, just when I had all these coin sorters and everything, then they hit me with Tito." And it's like, well, now we get Tito and all that figured. Now it's cashless, right? And so it's like it just always evolves, and it's usually some massive change too. Like there's little step changes, but then every so often it's like, oh, by the way.
That's why I'm super stoked for us to be back. I mean, even though we've only been paused for 6 months, like there's so many things that have happened and so many new players in the game that I can't wait to kind of interview and learn a little bit about what's coming. And you'll hear it here first.
We'll hear it here first. And so before we kick it over to Siobhan and her cool interview that we did, just like and subscribe. You know, a lot of people say, how do I help you out? Well, hey, that's it. Costs you nothing.
Yeah.
It helps us, right? Gets a little bit more eyes and ears on our show, what we're doing. So just whatever you're listening on, just give us a like, give us a 5-star, and that would go a long way.
And if you have any suggestions of anyone that you want interviewed, let us know in the comments.
We've been getting that. So that's been cool. Yeah, that has been actually fun because we said that and people took it seriously. They're like, hey, what about so-and-so? What about, these different people? And we're like, perfect. We'll start reaching out. So if you hear from us, it could be because your friend threw you under the bus and said, get in the studio, or it could just be we find you interesting. Yeah, just keep throwing your friends under. We'll interview them all and have a good time. So with that, let's get to Siobhan.
Yeah, and I can't wait to listen to the episode.
Yeah, I think you're going to like it, as it turns out.
Enjoy.
Yep. Bye. I was joking with my wife. I said, every day's Women's Day, right? Isn't it? Like between mom, if you're a mom, like I know you're talking about that.
Depends on who you're asking.
Fair enough. But I feel like, you earned more than a day. But as it is, happy Women's Day.
Thank you.
You look great. Feeling good. I mean, I'm just saying energy level wise, your new big job, gaming CEO.
Yes.
Is that weird? Is it the weight of that hit you strange? I mean, is it like, hey, small town girl from Ireland now running a multinational billion-dollar enterprise? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, I never think of it that way. Yeah.
Do your friends from home call you and go, what? I remember you like hopscotching or whatever, right? Is there?
That's funny. I went to high school in Muscatine, Iowa.
Okay.
What
was the mascot for Muscatine,
people
Iowa?
in Iowa would maybe know that, probably not. It was like a town of 25,000 people, so it was tiny on the Mississippi River. So, yeah, I sometimes think like, what are my high school friends, where did they go?
Well, I was going to say, what is the normal path in Muscatine? Is like, I would just assume it's immediately farming or agriculture or something.
Yeah, probably not gaming, although we have a SciPlay office in Iowa.
That's right. Yeah. Shout out Josh on the team.
Yes,
yeah, that's fun.
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to round it off. You're roughly 180 days in, I'd say. So typically with the president, you go, how's the first 100 days? So I'm a little late to the dance. How's the first 180 days? How you feeling about settling in and what you've accomplished thus far? Like, how's the vibe?
Again, I'm judging myself
here,
but I'm feeling good. Yeah. It's been a really great experience so far. I would say I definitely had those moments early on where I'm like, oh my God, like what have I signed up for? Yeah, right. But got on the other side of that, and it's been really wonderful. I'm a planner, as you probably know. I'm a highly organized person, so working through a 90-day plan. So I had a plan on a page on what I wanted to tackle or needed to focus on stepping into the role. As you know, the transition was a little unexpected,
right?
So it kind of hit me with like as a surprise, but I think once you, at least how I operate, once I get a plan on the page and can kind of organize my thoughts and then just get after it, I hit the ground running.
Set target, hit target, go.
Yes,
yeah,
go,
that's a good rhythm.
like a machine.
I will say from working now with you, that's one of the areas that you're helping me, because I always felt like I was decently organized, but you take that to a new level. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a level to this game that I can improve on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that. What would you say the biggest surprise was? Because you've worked pretty closely with the CEO's office in the past. Not like it's a foreign entity, like you're just moving up a chair.
Yeah.
So was there any major surprises in the first little bit here?
I don't think so. I don't think major surprises.
Sure.
I think to your point, and the benefit of kind of succession planning, which I think all organizations should do, you're sort of exposed. I mean, you're not in the seat, but you get a front row seat to see like how things are working and what's expected of the role. So I would say no major surprises, but it's very different front row viewing what's going on versus like being in the seat. So you just gain a different level of context and a different level of appreciation for what that role has to manage on a day-to-day basis and what they're ultimately accountable for. Like I'm that person at the top.
There's no one else to point to.
Exactly.
It's yours. Yeah.
Yeah. Point right at me.
That's wild. Yeah, that's interesting. So the thing I've heard other CEOs, like newly CEOs, say is you ran the business. I mean, you were a chief commercial officer prior to this, and so it's not like any of the business side is surprising. But then you go, all of a sudden, I'm responsible for IT somehow, and it's like that's an interesting view of the world. And I'm just curious, like, is there any adjacent departments that you may not think of right away when about the business that you've been like, oh, that's fun, or it's just a different thing to do today?
Yeah. You get to learn those pockets of the organization that you might not have already, thought about, like internal audit and some of these things that all of a sudden you like compliance.
I hear internal audit, I just think, like what did we do?
Who wants to talk to me?
Hopefully it all adds up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you get the whole kit and caboodle. So and you have to, I would say the one, not learning, but just thing I've experienced over the last 6 months is every day looks different, and because you're managing so many different functions or stakeholders, or you have to be talking to media 1 minute and then you have to be giving a board presentation another minute, or like have an employee conversation where all they're thinking about is like what's going on in their world, right? So you have to pivot and be pretty agile in how you show up in those moments, I would say. More than my previous job. I had to do that previously, but your scope is so much wider as a CEO, and I take those moments really seriously. And whether it's a one-on-one employee conversation or entire room that I'm addressing, that moment matters for that employee or that creator. So how do I show up in the right way in that moment?
Yeah, I'll say that. I think even at a high level, when you match, you're not the CEO, but you're close, you're directly reporting, like that time you go, yep, this is my time, because your time is very limited. So you say, even as a, maybe I get an hour, I'm like, okay, we're going to max out that hour. Right. So it's grateful for this side to have your attention in that, because if you were distracted, like, man, my only hour, she's somewhere else. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's, like, you just have to be intentional about your time. And I would love to give an hour to everybody, but you just can't afford to do that. But what you can do is be present and, focused on their needs in that moment, whatever the time is that's allocated to it. So, yeah, I think managing time, being intentional about how you spend that time, and staying true to those boundaries is how you're going to get it all done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there time management tactics? Like, do you take a breath? Because you mentioned you're like, you might go from media, like, I don't know what your schedule is today, but you're doing this, which is probably a little more casual. Then maybe you got to go upstairs and present to leadership, or who knows what. Like, do you just book in 5 minutes to take a breath and go, okay, take the media hat off, so to speak, and put the board hat on or something? Like, how do you make those transitions?
Yeah, if I can, certainly 5 minutes helps.
Yeah.
But I think trade shows are the most challenging, right? Because you're literally customer, media, employee. You're just constantly pivoting. But in the office environment, it's a little bit more
structured.
Forgiving.
Yeah, let's try to forget about trade show, because then you're probably going, and then you get blitzed by people that you didn't even know were coming. So you have your agenda, then you get the walk-ups like, hey, I own X amount of your company. Oh, well, great. Let's talk about that, right? So,
like, how do I quickly gain context here? And
or I want to take your picture for magazines. Like, well, okay, but where's that process at, right? Yes. So you just go through that whole gamut. I know it may be like picking a favorite kid, but do you have a favorite part of the new job? Like, is anything you're like, wow, I really like this, that maybe you didn't, not to say you didn't anticipate it, but as you're settling in, you go, this is what I love in the morning or when you wake up and you're looking forward to the day?
Yeah, I've established these CEO roundtables. So almost every week I meet with just a small group of our creators that helps me just stay in touch and understand like what's on your mind. And they can ask me anything in those sessions. So it's a pretty intimate group. Anything's on the table. They can ask me, about macroeconomic things that are going on or how are we thinking about investing this. But those have quickly become some of my favorite meetings on my calendar, is just having that conversation. And it looks different every time. And so they get access to me. They can ask me anything. And I get to understand what's on their mind and what they might have questions about or what they're concerned about. So it really helps me quickly connect to the business and gain context.
Yeah. And do you find a lot of the questions are more personal in nature? We're not personal about like outside of work, but meaning my job is my HR benefit, my world in the company versus how are we going to solve this economic headwind or something? Like, do you find it varies one or the other? Or is it just all over the board?
It does vary, but I would say there are less, this is a thing impacting my world very specifically, and more like genuine interest in and enthusiasm, quite frankly, for where we're going as an organization, or, kind of the what keeps you up at night questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a variety, but I would say more high level, interest in where we're taking the company in general.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't just lean into that softball you threw me. What does keep you up at night? Like, what, if you're asking, what are we doing?
Yeah. So I separate that in kind of external, what might be out of our control, and certainly, macroeconomic, is a recession on the horizon? Will we still continue to see the rates of inflation that we have been seeing? And we're a global company, right? So different regions or countries are in different stages of all of those questions. So those big headwinds, will they come to fruition? And again, we have not a lot of control over that. So then I kind of quickly flip to, okay, internally, are we investing in the right areas? Are we, doing right by our people? Are we doing what we say we're going to do as a leadership team, and really executing in the way that we need to be executing? So, and those are things that I have a bit more control and influence over. So,
and those are the ones you spend more mental energy on. Like I hear you saying, "Hey, I can let some of this go because I can't control a hurricane or a pandemic or whatever." Right? You just got to deal with that as it comes. But the rest of it, you can get your hands in.
Right. Well, I can position us to be able to react quickly to some of that uncertainty, but I can't control the uncertainty.
Yeah, if you could, it'd be a whole different kind of job.
That'd be amazing.
Like that.
I'm pretty planful, but I'm not that planful.
Everyone would know where Muscatine, Iowa was if you came out with the power to control the weather and the everything else, the force majeure.
It's been a little crazy this year.
It has. I know. Little different, but we love it. So selfishly, just going into desert life, because I do, because we're getting a lot of rain, a little snow in the desert, which is interesting, but we're hearing the snowpack's good. This is all nerdy desert stuff, but the lake might fill up again. So we're going, hey, water.
Bonus.
Yeah, you guys are like, we have too much water. We have
desert.
plenty. Yeah, exactly. So I digress. But as you look forward now, right? So in not maybe things that are keeping you up, but things that are revving you up. Things are like, hey, next 180 days, let's just say, what are you pumped about? Like, you're now building it. Like, it's almost now it's like your stamp, right, on this and moving forward. So what are you pumped about?
Oh yeah. And I was reminded of that by our chairman. He's like, this is your year, Siobhan.
You own it now.
You own it
whether
now.
you want to or not. Yeah.
You just didn't inherit
That's
it.
it.
So 6 months from now we'll be at G2E, which is kind of crazy to
wild.
think. And I think G2E in our industry, and especially on the supplier side of the industry, is always a great, line in the sand of measurement. Like, how far have you come in the last year, and have you shown progress against, the vision that you were really selling at last year's G2E? So, and I've kind of used that, measuring stick over the 3 years I've been here at Light and Wonder. And it's really fulfilling to see all the progress we make from year to year. I am just blown away by how much this organization has changed in such a short amount of time, in the midst of all this craziness going on with the pandemic and everything in the economic environment. But I am always excited to get to G2E and kind of take that measure. we've turned things around. We had energy really building. Last year, I could really feel the momentum. And then this year, I think there will be good things in store. So that's kind of the event I'm looking forward to.
Well, I was going to ask you, because that's such a hard measure to say, well, this is the benchmark. Because you could go factually. You go, we have X amount of new games or not, or we have X amount of new tables or systems features or not. But the energy thing, I think, is to me the biggest shift I've noticed. So coming in within the last 9 months, so I was with the team this past G2E. I felt like good energy in the booth. From outside years prior, it felt better being inside, like being there. It just felt like buzz, felt like the team liked each other again, right? So some of the culture, I know Matt, and we don't have to make it about Matt, but he's always like, I'm the culture CEO. It's like, great. Like we needed that. We're feeling the energy of that. So is that just a walk around and go, okay, the intuition says we're doing the right thing?
Completely. For me, it's like the energy. Do our creators believe in this journey? Are they out, really advocating for light and wonder? And if they're doing that, like, then, you've been successful. And if we can keep building on that, that's all it is about for me. So like, what's the energy level? What's the enthusiasm? Are your employees proud to stand on that booth and shout from the rooftops, like, come see us? We're not all the way there yet. We still have a lot of work to do, but, it's really important that your employees have pride and, they want to be there and they're bought in and they're motivated. So it's all about that level of energy for me.
And what, like when you say we have room to go, like what are some of the things we're doing to close the gap? Because energy, you go, well, okay, I need to feel more, but how do you do it? Is it more just, hey, we're going to commit to bigger and better investments in product? Is it, it's probably not Tuesday afternoon pizza parties, right? Maybe, but like, I'm just like, what are some of the things at your level you're looking at? Okay, here's how we really rev the engine for the team.
Yeah, I think over time, it's like doing what we say we're going to do for our customers, for our employees, for our, shareholders. And you can only do that over a time horizon, right? Sure. And what we were focused on last year is different than what we were, we're focused on this year. The fundamentals aren't the same, but we're laser focused on investing and making the best products because we want to be number one in every segment that we participate in. So yes, investment, but you have to have talented, motivated teams that, are pumping out those great products each day and are really proud of the work that they're doing. Yeah. So how do you keep them focused and motivated and giving them the environments and tools that they need to be successful? So I think it's a lot of different things. We've come very far from where we were 3 years ago, but no doubt this is a multi-year journey that we're on.
No doubt. Yeah, and the thing you said, I think you made it sound so easy, but it's actually pretty difficult and important is you said you're delivering on your promises. Yes. So we came in and I wasn't here at the time. I'm guessing there was some town hall or some big presentation video going, hey, we're here. We love you. Here's what we're going to do. And most people that have lived through management change go, yeah, okay. We'll see. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, hey, 6 months later, those 5 things you said, you did them. And then you gave us another 5. And then you did, or however many, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty important. And I don't think maybe that value is appreciated day to day because you get caught in the flurry of every fire going on or everything, right? And then you go, well, yeah, okay, we've delivered on it. So you feel pretty, have you delivered on most of your initial message? 3 years in, I'm assuming you hit all the first ones and now you're going, hey, we're right where we thought.
We had that meeting and then like 6 weeks later, a pandemic hit. We're like, that playbook's out the window.
Turns out, new plan, guys. Yeah, here we go.
Kind of have to get on the other side of this thing. Man. Yeah. And I think, for me, like I'm going to show up as much as I want the team to show up, right? So, and I think that's a real differentiator here is I know everyone on the leadership team is so bought in and so motivated to do the job at hand, and we're fully committed to that. And I think it's important for employees to see that, right? That there's an equality there, right? That leaders are going to show up every single day, and we're going to have each other's backs, and we're going to have our employees' backs, and that makes it easier to kind of buy in. And then as you build that trust through that high say-do ratio, then everybody starts to get on that journey together. And so that's really the aspiration and where I think we've made great progress.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it does seem like walking around the building, everyone's like, we're doing this. This is the vision. We're going after it. And we're, it feels like the confidence is high running around the building is what I would say. So That's good. So you mentioned Mr. Chairman earlier, and I laugh because I've spent maybe an hour and a half total with him, and he's just a stud, if I can say that. And so, but he was quoted by Matt in our first interview, one of our first, I think it was like episode 4. And Matt was saying, as he was developing, Matt Wilson was developing, he said, like, Jamie stopped him in the hallway and said, so Matt, what are you working on? Matt's like, well, I got this project. No. You personal development. What's your path right now? And so that's a thing. A, I've always stood out. Like, I've remembered that since Matt told that story. And B, I think it speaks to this fact that a lot of people say, oh, you made it to CEO. You have it all figured out. Congratulations. You've done it. And it's like, well, no, like, that's clear here that yourself, our other, we call them the executive leadership team, you're lifelong learners. Like, you're always working to improve. So what are your areas? I don't know if it's 3 things. I don't know if that's the standard anymore, but do you have things where you're going, okay, here's where I'm shoring up maybe some, not only call it weakness, but areas of opportunity in your professional development? Like, what are you
we always
on?
call it opportunity.
That's it.
Always frame it in the positive.
I come from
Mike.
sports where we just crush your spirit, right? So no, we don't get to do that. So
you're weak in this area. Yes.
Lift more weights.
Yeah, I think that's, that's exactly right. You're never done developing.
For sure.
Like, when you say, like, I'm fully developed, like,
you must
you're
be
done.
retired, sitting on the beach. Yeah. We're all good here.
And that's really the expectation, again, of leadership all the way up to the board, like you mentioned with Jamie, and then, cascading that through our teams. There are always opportunities to learn. When I stepped into this role, I had to take a bunch of assessments to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Like, what are Siobhan's opportunity areas? What are my strengths and weaknesses? And now I have a coach that I work with on a biweekly basis. One of the things when I stepped into this role is making sure I had great advisors around me. And I've always had mentors throughout my career. So making sure I have those people around me that I can bounce things off of. And, I'm thinking about this a certain way. So I have those people in place that have really helped guide me as I've, stepped into this role and continue to take on challenges in the role. So I think being a lifelong learner, having this growth mindset and accepting the fact that, there are always things you can learn or do differently or learn from others through a simple conversation even. And just being open to that and having a level of curiosity too.
Sure.
And, on a daily basis, I'm, reading articles or listening to podcasts.
Sure.
Or,
all right.
And, Matt's big on this too.
Sure.
He's always shooting us things to like tap into. So I just think it's such a great way of role modeling to our teams too, that, you're never done learning. You've never got it all right. Like, there will always be something you can hone or do better. And, hopefully our teams see that and see, take a look in the mirror and think, oh, what can I do better too?
Sure. I want to just question for you on the assessments.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times you already know, right? Like,
yes.
like I'm in.
Hopefully you already know.
Well, I'll just pick on myself publicly because it's easy to do. Like, we had our review yesterday, and you're like, like, you could maybe be a little more financially savvy, and I'm like, I know, right? Like, I'm with you. I definitely don't know all this stuff. And so I'll learn that. Like, I'll work on that, right? And I'm sure if I took an assessment, it would go, yeah, man, like you got a 101 level. You need to get to the PhD level or a master's, some higher level, right? And so did your assessments confirm what you already knew, or did you find anything in there you go, wow, I didn't even know that they would tell me that? Like, was there any weird curveballs, or was it all kind of just you knew?
I've always known, and I think that's the beauty of like just doing this on a continual basis.
Sure.
And you're not going to take a 180. Like, of us, we're not going to see Mike as a CFO,
No.
5 years from now.
I hope not, because I'm mismanaging somebody's funds, I think, at that point. Yeah.
But, if kind of the same things that came up, I've improved upon them over time, but, having a level of awareness around it and creating an action plan so you can work on it. You're not going to become a totally different person, but at least you know where your opportunity areas are. You have that awareness. And I think even more importantly, as a leader, you have to be self-aware.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're not leaning into those assessments and, because you're scared of what they might say, people are seeing it already.
You're already exposed.
Wouldn't you rather know and be doing something about it? So, yeah, they never tell me really anything that I'm not aware of on some level.
Yep, already have $3 on that. We're figuring coach is already working on a plan, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, I do think that self-awareness is important. And I will say that all the great leaders I've worked with, for, around have had that.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you, hey, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not the future CFO. That's okay. I don't lose sleep over that. Like that's, it's just an understanding. I don't pretend to be, right? So there's just that awareness, which I think is.
But also humility too. And again,
sure.
like role modeling that to your team, being like, you know what, here's what I'm working on. Like, here's what you can hold me accountable to. Now let's talk about what you're working on. And just reciprocating that it just gives them permission to be vulnerable and kind of put their hand up like, you know what, I have some opportunities too.
It's a life changer. I mean, we were just talking about this yesterday, but I said, look, like for me, that was my like smack in the face coaching. They're like, you seem to think you're invulnerable, that you can be the knight in shining armor and no bullet can hurt you. That's not true. We all know it. The second you start knowing it, the better you'll be. And I was like, yeah, okay, hard pill to swallow. But you go, well, you start leaning in a little, you go, well, actually, that coach was right. And here we go. So yeah, it's really good advice. I think just in general, just be authentic, like you own it. Like chances are good. Everyone already knows you're not whatever your weakness or your opportunity area is, right? So yeah, that's wild. But so you're mentioning a lot of things. And this morning, so we mentioned earlier, it's Women's Day. So I don't know if this video will end up made public, but we hosted here a panel with Jim Cicilli, who's our chief legal officer here, hosted yourself, one of our board members, Ginny Shanks, and then U.S. Congresswoman Susie Lee for like a women's panel.
Yep.
And as part of that, you started talking about, hey, you're woman of power and gaming and boss lady, right, and all that stuff, but you're also mom and wife and family member, and that has its own demand set. Like, how do you balance that? Is balance even attainable? Like, how does that play? Because you're sitting here saying, well, I got to right the ship on the gaming division. Not right the ship, but you're steering the ship. You have to personally develop. So you're mentioning podcasts and articles and all the books and coaches and all this. Oh, by the way, there's kids at home that want your attention, and I'm sure a husband that wants to talk to you from time to time. And it's like, well, how do you balance all that out? Like, how is that possible? I feel like you're a superhero.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And but I think if it's important enough, right, you let the important things flow to the top, and you learn how to juggle those, and then. I talked about this morning, like you got to deprioritize, and there are things in your life, whether you want to admit that to them or not, that continuously take your energy, right? And what are the things that give you fulfillment and give you energy? So you have to be like really disciplined about identifying those things. And I was really terrible at this early in my career, so I've just had to learn that skill in order to be able to do the things and pursue the things that make me fulfilled. So I think you have to be very aware of where are you giving your time and energy, and then, cut those things out of your life that are just sucking the energy from you, and, bring in the things that are giving you energy. And that includes people. Like, there are people that just don't reciprocate.
Right.
And they are just energy suckers. So, like, get rid of those people. Not that they're not, great people, but maybe not for you. And then I think time management is, and also what I've learned is like boundaries, identifying and enforcing boundaries, which I was terrible at.
I was going to ask you, it's like you mentioned, like, well, I used to be horrible. Now you have it not figured out, but much better, right?
Yeah.
So was it a learned behavior? Was it something you said, I read a book, talked to the coach, and this is what I did? Or was it just the force of life? Said, look, I got a board meeting and the media thing, and I just can't, I have to say no because I couldn't do it. Like, did you do it intentionally, or was there some balance, or how did that come about?
I think all women try to be super women and like
I see it,
literally try to get it all done. And then you kind of hit a wall in a moment where you're just, and usually, you pay a price, and it's your personal well-being. And I've definitely had those experiences where I just had to take a good hard look in the mirror and just say, like, you are doing too much. And then just reconfigure. And as I've gotten better over time, I almost anticipate and then put those check-ins in place where I'm like, okay, let's reevaluate here.
Sure.
And it's tough, right? Because, as kids grow up, things are constantly shifting and their needs are constantly shifting. And then you've got work moving at a rapid pace. You've got the travel component. So I've been more proactive at putting those check-ins in and kind of asking myself, what do I need to recalibrate here? Yep. And sometimes it can be like every few weeks or few months, but it's pretty regular check-ins.
Yeah, but super intentional. It sounds like you have to make the time to make the time, is like, for lack of a better phrasing. And
I'm a yes person. Like I'm an optimist. So when things are thrown my way.
Optimist, I believe. Yes person, I wouldn't have said, but I mean, I'll hear you.
In the vein of like, I think I can help you there, or I'd love to spend time with you there. So it's hard for me to say no because being a yes person in that, like, I feel like we can, tackle this and get this done together. So it pains me to have to, like, say no to somebody, but ultimately it's probably the best thing.
Yeah. Well, and it might be good for them too, right? Because like, I think to the point earlier, like a half interested, it doesn't have to just be you, and it's you in this case, right?
Yeah.
You showing up with your mind somewhere else isn't helping them any better than you saying, look, I can't be the one, but so-and-so maybe, or maybe you don't refer and they find someone anyway, and that person's fully invested, right?
Yeah.
So
I've learned the magic of let me connect you to the right person.
Yeah. Is that the skill set? Yeah. I guess it relies on you knowing the right person, but that's helpful to go, okay. This way, that's good. You walk away helpful, but yet not overly burdened. That's
yes.
That's a good one. So many people may know this. They may not. This is your second appearance on the show.
Yes.
So we had John with Cassie Stratford. So shout out to Cassie about, I don't know if it was Women's Month, but we definitely had talking about DEI initiatives. And one of the things, just the phrasing that stood out to me was the challenge to make space for the other, especially when you're me, right? When you're the prototypical 6'6" white dude, like you are. I've never been the minority. Like, let's put it that way. And I don't think I take space away, but it was a good challenge to go, well, just maybe let Siobhan talk. And it's easy when you're the boss. But I guess my question for you is, as you've ascended, right? So now that you're the boss, do you feel like space is more readily available? Do you feel like you're still fighting for space at the table? Like, how's that dynamic change for you? Because I would imagine if you're the entry level female or minority or however you want to put it, it's harder to get a seat at the table because you don't have that power of rank. But is it lessened now that you're at the top? Or you're like, well, now I'm just in another circle of even more powerful people, and it's still hard fighting for a room at the table. Like, how has that journey evolved as you've progressed your career?
Yeah, I don't think it's shifted too much because I've been in this environment for several years. And like you said, it's easy to take up space when you're the boss. Sure. I think I would flip that conversation on, again, the onus is more on me as the leader to create space for others. So how do I read the room and develop a level of awareness around how are people experiencing this meeting or this interaction? So how can I leverage my position to create space for others? So I guess I'm farther enough along in my journey where I don't really worry about it, but I'm also in a position of power where I don't necessarily have to worry about it, but then how can I use that power to help others in their journey?
And is it as simple as making sure we call on them in the meeting? Like, I always laugh because I feel like and maybe it's a little repetitive, but you go, well, look, like, we're still not all the way there. Yeah. So you got to keep running the drill until you nail it, right? And we're not, as a industry, let's call it, we haven't nailed it. We're making a lot of progress. Yeah. I think every company posts about Women's Day. There's a lot of purple, a lot of cupcakes going. Yeah, I'm all for it, right? But you go, but do those same women that are featured in your post get a seat at the table? Do they have space, I guess? So what are some of the, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of talking a little bit.
I mean,
this
is one day, right?
It's for sure. Yeah.
So posting on social media, great.
Should do.
Let's do it.
I'm in for it.
Level of awareness around creating equitable environments. But it's like, how do you translate that awareness into like action, and what are you actually doing to drive change within your organization? And everyone can play a role in that, right? It can be as simple as like just having a level of awareness around a certain interaction or word choice, or taking that extra step to create space for somebody in a meeting. Or it can be, if you're in a position of power, how do you create policy or programs that can really create this systematic change in the organization? One thing we do here is we have our employee resource groups that we developed a couple of years ago. And that's the group, the women's group that sponsored the podcast this morning. So it's a group of employees that have, they come together around, a common cause. In this case, it's women's empowerment, but we have several different ERG groups throughout the organization. And they can really, develop content and conversation around their particular area of focus. Yep. And that in of itself helps to drive awareness and action. So that's just one way that, we can harness the power of our people to drive a level of change and awareness within Light and Wonder.
Yeah, and specific, since Women's Day, we'll talk about, I think we call it Empower Her, right? Yes. For the internal group, which is pretty cool. I like it. I'm all for the puns and the wordplay. what I learned today from Stephanie, it
Yes.
sounds like not only do we have the group saying, hey, we want to get together, we want to do cool panels. Sounds like they have been allowed to take some time to do community service,
Yep.
maybe during work hours, which is awesome support from the company. I don't know if they're funded in other ways, but I feel like that what I'm getting at is it's not just, hey, yeah, you're allowed to congregate in the meeting room. Do that. Oh, by the way, we're helping. Like we're investing in that space. So how do you look at that? I mean, it seems like obviously our leadership, yourself as one of the main drivers, says we value that. So we're going to fund it to some level. But for maybe those out there that go, what's the ROI on Empower Her? Right? Like how do you say that to other leaders that haven't crossed the bridge to maybe funding those initiatives and really supporting it from like maybe a more meaningful material way?
Yeah. Well, I think funding's important, but getting firsthand involvement. So each of our executive leaders, they're tasked with sponsoring an ERG within the organization, so they get firsthand experience. And I think it can be a game changer, especially if you're not part of that group directly. Just listening to the conversation and their experiences can create allies. And I think this idea of allyship we talked about
for
last
sure.
year. I think that's our biggest opportunity in gaming is, yes, we have ERGs, but likely minority groups are the one driving the DEI agenda.
Yes, right.
And so how can allies take a more active role? And there are so many studies out there that prove the strategic importance of more diverse groups and teams and organizations. And I mean, if you think about, if I'm getting a project done, do I want all of the people working on that project, they think
Right.
the same, they look the same? No, I want diversity in thought and perspectives, and create a space where you can have healthy debate and challenge the thinking. But if you don't have those diverse thoughts and perspectives coming into the conversation, then are you really driving the best result at the end of the day? Probably
Yeah.
not. And if you think about that on the scale of an organization, it's really meaningful and can really impact the bottom line. So there is financial benefit. I think it's a more rewarding place to work when you're working with we talk about being lifelong learners.
For sure, yeah.
You learn from, do you want to learn from somebody who looks, acts, and thinks exactly like you? Probably not. So,
No, I get bored, I think.
Yeah.
Especially my personality. No,
not that there's another mic out there, but.
There's probably, well, thank you very much. I take compliments horribly. So if I get awkward, it's just because I don't know what to do with my hands. But it's, no, you're 100% right. And I think that's where one of the things, look, I'll always shout you and then Randy, our head of marketing here, out because you were the ones that called in. You're like, hey, so we would happily do an interview, but you guys are a little boys clubby. We're like, are we? We didn't even and I think for us, it just highlighted, it just reinforced that like a lot of folks have these biases. They didn't even know.
Right.
Like I think most people that are maybe hiring the person that looks like them or sounds like them or went to their school, they're not doing it on purpose. They just kind of went that way. Like just the world just, well, this is easy. Yeah, go Rebels, whatever the school is, or Nittany Lions for you. And so it's like, but that's also bad, right? And so I think that having that active thought to say, well, is this the right fit? Like, do I really need another me to tell me what we should do? Like, probably not. Like, I've benefited greatly from talking to you, and we have very different backgrounds, right?
Yep.
So
I think the
I think your
first,
point is right.
like if everyone can take a course or read something on unconscious bias,
yeah.
that alone will just raise your level of awareness around why you do make those decisions or tend to gravitate toward people that look and think and act like you. And it's by association. It's something familiar. It's like, I'm actually making a connection with the person because we went to the same school. But that's all unconscious bias at play. So I think if you educate yourself on that, and it's not ill-intentioned, and usually not done on purpose, but if 90% of what's going on in our brain is unconscious, chances are, so like 9 out of the 10 decisions you make are unconsciously motivated, then chances are you're doing some things that you probably need to raise your awareness around, and you can do better
100%.
Simply by educating yourself.
Yeah, I read, I don't know if it was an article or a short book or something, but the unconscious bias topic, and that was illuminating because I always felt like, well, I know I'm not a racist. Like I don't think, right? And then I don't believe I'm sexist. Like I don't believe I'm making women uncomfortable or excluding. Like it just felt like all the big boxes. I'm like, well, I don't fall into that. And then the author, I think, said, well, would you hire somebody that went to your college versus a different college? Would that be preferential? Oh, yeah, you're right. I probably would, right? Like didn't think of it that way.
Unconscious bias.
Might have been a minority female rebel. And the
Right.
rebel would have made me a little biased. So it's like, oh, like I think there's so many areas of that, to your point, you don't even know you're exhibiting.
Yeah.
And I think reading about that was for sure eye-opening for me. Because I was like, I'm a good guy. Like, come on. Like, I'm not the guy
Yeah.
you're writing about. And I'm like, maybe I am actually. Like, not even trying to be. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I think,
good.
and it's everyone does it, just on these like very micro levels. Again, like word choice, behaviors, like just
Right.
associations.
Well, I laugh because I have this. I don't. Again, never thought of it as weird. Recently, I thought, hey, I should check that behavior. So I just compliment people, like not intentionally. Like so, and with ladies, I always try to be careful because I don't want to be that guy. But I was like, there's somebody here. I said, hey, those shoes are pretty cool, right? Like then I thought, like, well, you might not take that the right way. Like I'm not trying to be like I don't think that was like super offensive, but I was like, maybe.
What
I should.
did Mike mean by that?
Yeah, like was he hitting on me or like what? And I was like, and with guys, it's easy to just go, hey man, nice shoe. Like he generally, you know, I'm probably talking about it more, you know. So I'm like, I'll be careful. Like, but then I just circled back. I was like, are you good with that? And that person was like, hey, you know, thanks for checking in. I was fine, but I actually respect you more for actually following up. And I was like, oh, good. So we're good 2 times, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild to think just those little behaviors that you go, why would he or she care that I said nice shoes?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden it's like, well, now it's about my appearance and not about my skills. And I'm like, wow, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
So
I think you never know the path somebody has walked
100%.
and the experiences they've had that can like influence their interpretation of that comment.
Yeah, or their perception of me that I
Right.
don't know. Like maybe they had thought differently than like I'm a good guy. They're going, maybe you're a big scary. I don't know, but like you never know, right?
Yeah,
So that's the key.
I'm
like,
sure you deal with stereotypes.
yeah, well maybe, but not ones that tend to bother me. Right?
Yeah.
I laugh. I'm not going to name names. One of our executives here always goes, "You kind of intimidate me, man. Like you're a big guy, beard, tattoo. Like yeah, just keep your distance." I was like, "Yeah, it's okay." Like he says it jokingly, but I'm like, that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But somebody could take that the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
So, but I laugh because the guy obviously I respect, and I'm like, okay, if I can intimidate you, maybe it's a superpower. I should lean into this a little, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's all good. So we'll all be better. That's the message. Just
We'll all be
do a
better.
little better.
Yeah.
Speaking of being better, I don't know if better is the way to phrase this, but new. Who should we go to the future? I always issue the MaxBet challenge. We're
the
kind of winding that, put you in the hot
challenge.
seat a little, but take you off the hot seat for all the other questions.
Yes.
So who should we interview? You know all the, maybe in Women's Day it's a woman? I don't know.
I'm going to have to go with a woman.
should. I
because
hope
it's
you do.
International
Yeah.
Women's Day. Yay, women.
Boom, yeah.
We might have talked about Lauren the last time we were together.
Bates?
Lauren Bates.
LB. Yes,
yeah,
perfect.
I'm going to put Lauren's name out there.
I love it. Yeah, I don't know if you formally challenged her before, but I know that she's in. We should do this, yeah.
She should.
She's overdue to
She'll
come
be
in.
great, yeah. And I think we mentioned it twice, so
Yeah, perfect.
it's time. But she's great lady. I think she'd be have a great conversation here, and she's really involved in global gaming women, so doing great things.
Awesome.
At Konami, global gaming
Perfect.
women, and just a great person in our industry. So
Love it.
Lauren
And my
Bates.
personal favorite for her, or like one of my fun facts, is she scares Landon. So
Yeah.
when he's back in the building, we
Yes.
can bring her
All
in
the
and he'll
more
be a little
reason
nervous.
to-
Yeah, you'll get a whole different kind of interview on that one. So, well, this is awesome. Any parting thoughts or?
No, I think
Perfect. Yeah, we
we've
covered it. We
covered a
nailed it.
lot.
Yeah.
And happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day. Thanks for
Yes.
your time, Siobhan.
Thanks
and
for having
we'll
me.
let you go kick some more butt in the biz.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
I'll
Siobhan.
get after it.